Imagine possessing the unprecedented power to bring millions of people into your living room every single morning, making them laugh, cry, and feel a profound sense of connection, only to eventually become the center of a massive cultural reckoning that shatters your carefully constructed empire. This is the extraordinary, deeply complex reality of a woman who risked her entire career to become the first openly gay lead of a network television sitcom, fundamentally altering the landscape of LGBTQ representation, before building a daytime television dynasty that championed a philosophy of radical kindness. Her journey from a depressed, struggling stand-up comedian working in hostile comedy clubs to the most powerful woman in daytime television, and ultimately to a deeply polarizing figure facing severe workplace allegations, is a masterclass in the dizzying heights of fame and the inescapable gravity of public scrutiny. To understand her legacy is to understand the evolution of modern celebrity, a landscape forever altered by a pioneer who broke the ultimate glass ceiling, only to find that the foundation of her own kingdom was far more fragile than the world ever realized. The genesis of this unparalleled entertainment phenomenon began in the winter of 1958 in the vibrant, culturally rich city of Metairie, Louisiana, before her family eventually relocated to the historic, atmospheric streets of New Orleans. Born into a family of insurance agents, her early environment was marked by the deep, traditional values of the American South, a setting that would later make her personal revelations all the more disruptive to the cultural status quo. Her childhood was not without its shadows, as she struggled profoundly with her identity and mental health from a very young age. The intense pressure to conform to societal expectations, combined with her own internal conflicts regarding her sexuality, led to severe psychological struggles, including depression and an eating disorder. Seeking an escape from her internal turmoil, she discovered the transformative power of humor. She realized early on that making people laugh was a defense mechanism, a way to deflect pain and connect with others without having to reveal her true, vulnerable self. This realization became the cornerstone of her entire future career. After briefly attending college and working a series of mundane, unfulfilling jobs, including painting houses, waitressing, and even working as a paralegal, she made the fateful decision to pursue stand-up comedy. The transition was anything but glamorous. She spent years touring the grueling, often hostile circuit of small comedy clubs across the country, starting in local venues and eventually moving to larger markets. During this period, she was frequently subjected to heckling, sexism, and the immense pressure of performing in environments that were rarely welcoming to a female comic, let alone one who did not fit the traditional, aggressive mold of the era. She developed a unique, observational style of comedy that was deeply self-deprecating, highly relatable, and entirely devoid of malice. She talked about the mundane frustrations of everyday life, her awkward social interactions, and her own insecurities, forging a deep, empathetic bond with her audiences. Her big break arrived when she was named the Showtime Young Comedian of the Year, a prestigious accolade that finally brought her national attention and opened the doors to late-night television talk shows, where her charming, awkward, and utterly authentic persona quickly made her a fan favorite. The momentum from her stand-up success culminated in the creation of her own network television sitcom in the mid-1990s. The show was a massive critical and commercial success, centering on the life of a quirky, relatable bookstore owner navigating the complexities of friendships, dating, and adulthood. However, as the show's popularity skyrocketed, the cultural conversation surrounding the main character's sexuality became increasingly impossible to ignore. The media, the public, and the network executives were all intensely focused on the fact that the actress playing the lead was a lesbian, while her character on screen remained ambiguously heterosexual. The pressure reached a boiling point, forcing her to make a decision that would forever alter the trajectory of her life and the history of television. In a historic, highly publicized television event, she appeared on a major talk show to publicly announce her homosexuality, an act of immense personal courage that immediately sparked a massive cultural firestorm. The subsequent episode of her sitcom, which featured her character coming out, became one of the highest-rated episodes in television history. The immediate aftermath of her historic revelation was a brutal, unforgiving backlash. She was suddenly thrust into the center of a vicious culture war. The media subjected her to relentless, often cruel scrutiny, labeling her with derogatory terms and questioning her morality. Sponsors began to pull their advertising from her show, and the network, panicked by the controversy and declining ratings, abruptly cancelled the series after just one more season. For several years, she found herself virtually blacklisted from mainstream Hollywood, struggling to find acting work while navigating the intense personal toll of being the most controversial figure in American pop culture. However, this period of profound professional exile also allowed her to reconnect with her roots. She returned to her stand-up comedy roots, embarking on a highly successful tour that proved her comedic genius was entirely independent of her television sitcom. She also began directing and producing, expanding her creative footprint behind the camera, and slowly rebuilding her industry reputation through sheer talent and unyielding resilience. The ultimate, triumphant resurrection of her career arrived in the early 2000s when she launched her own syndicated daytime talk show. The program was a radical departure from the confrontational, sensationalist daytime television of the era. Instead of focusing on scandals and shouting matches, she built a brand entirely around positivity, light-hearted celebrity interviews, elaborate pranks, and a philosophy of radical kindness. She created a sanctuary of joy, dancing with her audience at the beginning of every show, giving away massive prizes, and celebrating everyday heroes. The format was an absolute, unprecedented smash hit. The show quickly became a cultural institution, dominating the daytime ratings and earning her a staggering number of Daytime Emmy Awards. She transformed her personal brand into a multi-million-dollar empire, launching successful product lines, writing best-selling books, and becoming the face of major corporate advertising campaigns. She was no longer just a comedian or an actress, she was the undisputed queen of daytime television, a beloved national treasure who brought a daily dose of sunshine into the homes of millions. However, the glittering facade of her daytime empire eventually began to crack under the weight of intense scrutiny. As the years progressed, whispers of a stark disconnect between her public persona and her private management style began to circulate within the industry. The situation reached a critical breaking point when a massive, highly publicized investigation revealed a deeply toxic workplace environment behind the scenes of her show. Former employees and staff members came forward with harrowing accounts of fear, intimidation, racial insensitivity, and abusive behavior from top producers. The allegations painted a devastating picture of a workplace where the famous mandate to be kind was allegedly weaponized to silence dissent and enforce a culture of fear. The public backlash was swift and severe. The very audience that had tuned in for years to feel good about themselves felt deeply betrayed by the hypocrisy. Facing a massive ratings decline and an irreparable blow to her brand, she was forced to issue a public apology, acknowledging that the show had not lived up to its stated values and promising immediate, sweeping changes to the production environment. Despite the implementation of new protocols and a change in leadership, the damage to her reputation was profound and largely irreversible. The final seasons of her show were marked by a palpable tension, and she eventually made the decision to end the program, stepping away from the daily grind of daytime television. The legacy of this extraordinary, deeply complex figure is permanently etched into the cultural and social fabric of the modern world. She is, without a doubt, a trailblazer who risked everything to shatter the ultimate glass ceiling for LGBTQ representation in mainstream media, paving the way for countless others to live and work authentically. She revolutionized daytime television, proving that a show could be successful by focusing on joy and generosity rather than conflict and sensationalism. Yet, her story is also a profound cautionary tale about the immense, often toxic pressures of fame, the dangers of building an empire on an unattainable public persona, and the inescapable reality that the demands of a massive corporate machine will eventually collide with the human flaws of its creator. From the hostile comedy clubs of her youth to the dazzling, multi-million-dollar sets of her daytime empire, her journey remains one of the most fascinating, triumphant, and ultimately tragic narratives in the history of modern entertainment.